everyone, and thank you for attending our first Viewers Advisory of 2021. Today we will be reviewing A24's movie, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, starring Jonathan Major. First, I just want to introduce myself and my colleagues on the panel who are always so gracious to help me and are awesome participants. My name is Cinnamon Better, and I work at the Oxon Hill branch.
I'm Jade Campbell. I work at the Mount Rainier branch.
Daniel Hampton. I work at the Spaldings branch.
My name is Elizabeth Ajunwa. I work at the Glenarden branch.
My name is Lauren Roots. I work at the Oxon Hill branch.
And my name is Bashir Kareem. I work at the Fairmont Heights branch.
All right. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves, and thank you, viewer, for watching today. As I said before, we're going to be reviewing the movie The Last Black Man in San Francisco. So first off, I just want to get you guys' overall thoughts on the movie. What did you like about it? And did you enjoy the movie?
I really enjoyed the movie. One of the things that stood out to me, or that I really enjoyed about it, was the different stereotypes that were kind of focused on, and the idea that our own people, that Black folks, can kind of hold each other back with some of the things that they say and some of the actions that we do towards each other. Like, there was a scene where some of the guys were standing in front of Montgomery's house, and every time we see these guys, they're joking, they're joning on somebody, they're talking about somebody, and they're really out there to kind of make you feel bad or get into your pride. But later on in the movie, Montgomery kind of calls that out. He's like, why are we trapping ourselves inside this little box when there's so many different things we can do, using Jimmy Fells as an example, saying that he's a carpenter, he's this and that. And I don't know, it kind of spoke to me, saying that, as Black folks, or, people in general, we shouldn't constrict ourselves and restrain ourselves to certain stereotypes or certain ideas and images,
Yeah, the idea that you are not just one thing. Like, you can be more than one thing, more than
right.
thing that people most know you as. Like, you have depth.
Right, exactly.
Anyone else? Did someone not enjoy the movie?
I didn't like it that much. I struggled trying to understand as a complete project what the point of the movie was, like what was the plot continuity, because it was like, okay, I was with them in like the first 75%, but then we have like the big reveal at the end. It's like, okay, so then what was the point? if this is what the case was the entire time, then and this is the realization that we're having, then why did we have to be taken on this journey? Because I was thinking that the movie was going to be about one thing, but then it ended up being about something completely different, because we were told one narrative when in actuality the story was another truth, I guess we could say.
I asked you what you thought it was going to be about.
Yeah, I thought the movie was going to be one of those, okay, this is a movie about gentrification and how Black people tend to be affected by the gentrification process. Like, they end up getting pushed out of the city, unfairly, or whatever the case is. And then at the end, it was like, so wait a minute, you mean to tell me that?
Yeah.
I was lost.
I feel that's part of it, but I also feel like a lot of it is, we're again kind of going back to what Jade said, we're not really restricted to just one narrative or one space either, because we feel like, this is all we have, or this is what we have, or this is ours, when really it may not be ours. And we have the ability to move forward. We have the ability to go elsewhere or to do something else with our lives. So I think it's just a mixture of both. Like, if we're not happy with the things that we're seeing that are happening in our communities, we have two opportunities. You have two choices. You can continue to stay in it, mire yourself in it. You can move forward. You can do something better for your community. You can. There are so many other things that you can do. I think. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was beautifully weird. I thought it was whimsical, but it was also very heavy, as it touched on, gentrification, um, you know, uh, toxic masculinity. It touched on what it means to be home. What is home? Talked about, just male friendships, or especially Black male friendships. And so there was a lot to unpack in this movie, and it's kind of easy to kind of push aside and disregard because it was so unorthodox in the way that it unfolded. But it's one of these movies where you can't fully imbibe it in one viewing. Like, you actually have to watch it at least 2 times. I can tell you that I found it to be a lot more enjoyable watching it a second time. I found myself laughing more because I understood what was unfolding in front of me. The first time, I wasn't quite sure what I was seeing, and it was hard to really understand. But the second time around, I felt it was phenomenal. So it's one of these movies that, as with all these A24 movies, you have to really take your time with it. It's not a cookie cutter type of film, so you can't expect that going in. And it just causes you to think in a various ways. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, I would probably reiterate a lot of what Cher and everyone else is saying about the film. I appreciate the film, especially the portrayals of Black masculinity, kind of an honest discussion of toxic masculinity, as mentioned before. And I appreciated the visual style. At times, I thought it was a little bit too stylized at points, but I thought it was still effective. And it's a beautifully crafted film. Yeah.
Okay. So I like the film, but like Daniel said, it took a turn. You think that it's initially about gentrification, but the more you watch it, at least for me, like, I realized that it was more about like identity. So you have this young man who doesn't really have a relationship with his mom or with his dad. He doesn't really have any other family to speak of other than his best friend. And the only thing that's anchoring him into this city is that house. And so, like, through this, taking back of the house and saying, like, this belongs to us, it doesn't belong to them, and then finding out that all along they really had no claim to it, even though that's where he felt, I guess, like he belonged. So I thought that was kind of heartbreaking that he went through this whole kind of, like, I don't want to say it was an identity crisis, but to find out that something that you cling to all along was a lie, and to realize that you were actually feeding into the lie, I felt really bad for him. So at first, on the surface, you think it's about gentrification and how, people that are not from your town come in and kind of just take ownership because they have the money and the status, and kind of displacing you because you don't have the money and now this town isn't yours anymore. So I appreciated it for that because it was more complex than the, normal gentrification. They're pushing us out and we have no idea why type thing. So I think, Bashir, you touched on different themes in the movie. Was there a theme that resonated with you the most, or one that you thought was one of the most central themes of the movie?
Yeah, so one of the themes, and there are many in the film, but one theme that really stuck out to me was just male friendship. And so you got a chance to see what a toxic male friendship would look like in the crew that kind of hung out on the corner, and they just ragged on each other and put each other down. And never really tried to elevate each other. And then you had, you know, the two main characters, Jimmy Fails and Mont. I think that's short for Montgomery. And they were very, you know, they were very empathetic towards each other. They were very supportive. They were both tremendous listeners. They felt for each other, and they wanted what was best for each other. And it was just a really nice thing to see on film, and they really enjoyed each other's friendship. And it was just, I thought that was just a powerful thing to see on the screen.
Yeah, I think what made their friendship so powerful for me was that they could be like completely vulnerable with one another. Like, you know, even once Jimmy found out, you know, that he was lying to himself all those years. Like, you know, when Montgomery found out, it wasn't like he blasted him or made him feel bad or called him a fraud or anything. You know, he let him know, like, you are so much more than this house. Like, you're a caring man, you're a carpenter, you're a gardener. Like, you can grow things with your own hands, and it doesn't matter that someone else before you didn't grow it for you or didn't build it for you. Like, you can build your own thing. Like, you have the foundation to start something within yourself. This shouldn't destroy you. And I just thought that was really beautiful. Like, that he had somebody that he could count on. You know, coming from that broken home, I feel like Montgomery was kind of like his rock. So I really appreciated their friendship, especially seeing the complete opposite in that group of guys that hung out in front of the house. It was kind of like, wow, like every man needs a friend like Montgomery. Like, seriously.
I feel like Montgomery basically saved Jimmy's life, because there was a scene later on in the movie where I think Montgomery was being bullied by the corner dudes, and Jimmy was questioning. He's like, why are you so nice to them? Then, you know, it comes up that Jimmy used to bully Montgomery as well.
Right.
And Montgomery didn't, you know, he didn't pay it any mind, and he took that on. He became Jimmy's friend, and he was completely honest with Jimmy. He didn't hold any secrets from him. And, you know, though he expressed his honesty, like he revealed the big secret in a very dramatic way, I still feel like that was pretty powerful. A powerful move that a friend can make, you know, just being honest with the other friend and just telling them, you know, okay, boom, this is how it is. This is not just what you might think it is. This is how it actually is. So pay attention. And then in the, you know, the last scene, you see Jimmy going. He's gone. He's getting out of there.
Yeah, and I think Montgomery touched on, you know, when Jimmy confronted him about, like, why are you, like, drawing them? Like, they're mean to you. They treat you like crap. And he's just like, you know, I can't appreciate someone just because they're mean to me. And that just goes back to the theme of, like, you can be more than one person. Like, yeah, these guys might rag on you all the time, but that may just be a defense mechanism for them. I can't remember the guy's name that came to their house, but like they were all just laughing, joking, hanging out like they were the Three Musketeers. But then he has to put on this tough guy persona because that's the only way he can protect himself from his cousins who are like hardened and want him to, you know, be the tough guy and be hard. But it goes to show that, like Montgomery said, like you can be more than one person. So thank you for that. Any other themes or anybody else want to touch on male friendships in the movie?
I just kind of want to touch on maybe piggybacking off of it, but just kind of broadening out a little bit, like the theme of just a relationship, period. Like the relationships that each character had with each other they were all distinctly different. Like even his relationship with his mom, it was like seeing a stranger on the bus. It was just like, hey, I'm your mom. Oh, okay, cool. It's just like,
I'll come by tomorrow.
Exactly. And I don't even think she ever showed up. But it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, you really see how those familial bonds change and can latch onto people that you're not even biologically connected to. Like, obviously, Montgomery and his grandpa were like, that was his family in reality. Like, he only really visited his dad when he, like, had a question about something. And he visited him, like, out of obligation almost, it seemed like, hey, you're my dad. I know where you are. I have to come visit you. Like he didn't know where his mom was. Even after they had met up on the bus, she didn't tell him where she lived.
Right. She didn't even know that he didn't have a phone.
Right. So just like the way they draw those relationships with each other, I thought was kind of unique. And it's like that is some people's reality. Like some people's family are people they've had to make those bonds with.
Right.
And I feel like Daniel, what you talked about with the familial bonds makes it make sense why he clung to the idea of the home, because his family was so distant and attached, and he didn't have basically anything else he could kind of like rudder himself to outside of Montgomery and his grandfather, but that wasn't really his. So he would kind of, basically lie to himself, because if you don't have anything really else, like even I think he goes to his aunt, and even she's kind of like, yeah, you still can't stay here. It's almost like he didn't have really anything else. And once at the end of the movie, that is distinctly made clear that that's no longer attachment that you can really hold on to. He had to let go of San Francisco altogether. And I think that's a pretty powerful way of showing like how much relationships can kind of make us and determine our paths in life.
Yeah, because it almost seems like the house and the memories that he had of the house is like the closest thing he had to a stable family situation, where like his reality and like his adulthood, it's like there is nothing stable about his situation at all.
Yeah, things were constantly changing for him, but the house is the one thing that remained constant. Like he could always go back and say, my grandfather built this house this date, X, Y, and Z. But like you said, he didn't have a stable home. He didn't have any real family to root him into San Francisco. He didn't have a job that we know of. So yeah.
Yeah, so thinking back on it, it's like, to have that one thing stripped away in such a dramatic way, it can be kind of devastating.
Right.
I mean, I still don't like the movie, but it had some powerful moments.
Speaking of powerful moments, were there any like scenes that you felt like after watching the movie kind of still stuck with you, or while you were watching the film, you were like, wow, like this is amazing?
Top 2 scenes for me. I almost cried on this part when your boy died, when your corner boy, he died. And Jimmy and Mont, they don't know. They're just finding out. And the one guy gets in Jimmy's face. And he's looking like he's about to punch Jimmy in the face. But then he just starts crying on his shoulder. And Jimmy's hugging him, and he's hugging Jimmy. And at that point, I felt it then. I was like, man, growing up, I know a lot of people who have been killed. I know a lot of people who know a lot of people who've been killed just at young ages, for doing some of the things that they probably shouldn't have been doing, or being pushed by their group of friends like he was. So I could feel the emotion. I could feel the sadness that was expressed in that scene. And then my favorite scene, of course, was the play that Montgomery put on, which kind of climaxed the whole entire movie. Basically telling us to step out of our box, to, stop holding each other down by holding these certain standards or stereotypes against one another. Step out the box. You don't have to be on the corner. You don't have to be this and that everybody wants you to be. You can indeed ride a skateboard or wear a sweater that, your father might disagree with.
Right.
I gotta look. Oh, hey, there she is.
Joining us today is also Jadae's daughter. I don't think she'll be offering any commentary though.
Did you see the movie? You did? All right, next.
Any other scenes, guys, that stuck with you?
For me, the opening scene with the street pastor standing on the milk crate delivering a sermon to exactly 2 individuals, Jimmy and Mont. That scene for me was really powerful. He was railing against, at that particular time, a bunch of guys in hazmat suits who were cleaning up, the Bay Area. And he was saying, why is it that you guys have on suits and we don't?
Right.
Why is it that this water has been putrid for 50 years, but now you guys want to clean it? He was pointing out all of these problems and the injustice. that was occurring in that town, and how he felt like they were taking their home away from them. And as a Washingtonian, I've seen Washington change dramatically over the course of my life, and when he talked about that water, it immediately brought the Anacostia River to my mind. And when I was thinking back, I mean, when I was a kid, the Anacostia River was absolutely filthy. And however, today the situation has drastically changed. But not just the water has drastically changed; the whole landscape has drastically changed. And so, it was sad to see that situation unfold. But I felt like he was speaking truth to power. And I felt like they had to kind of lighten up the scene a little bit. So they had the main character say, "Oh, it's amazing what jail can do to you, when you come out of there." But I mean, I think they felt like they needed to soften up that scene. But I mean, if you really listen to that part, you'll find that he was really, really spot on in pointing out the injustices that were occurring in so many major cities, not just that city, but in so many major cities.
I wanted to comment on two things that you said, Bashir. One, do you guys remember when he was doing his speech and they were just like, I wonder if he rehearses this or if it's impromptu? And then like a few scenes later towards the end of the movie, we see him like in the mirror, like, yeah, and they're in hazmat suits and we not. And then he's like, like rehearsing what he's going to say. So I thought that was funny. Like they were trying to decide whether it was impromptu or rehearsed, but it was obviously rehearsed once we see later in the scene. And also, I forgot the other point that I was going to make. Okay, come back to me.
So picking up on that point, Cinnamon, can we also take that scene and say that the preacher, pastor, or whatever you want to call him, he was also putting on a front for everybody else?
Right. I think that identity plays like a huge role in this film. Because, to the outside world, speaking about Jimmy's father, he seemingly looks like he has everything together. He's dressed in snazzy clothes, like he walks like, can't nobody do anything to him. But he's sitting in his house and, kind of looking a little frail, making bootleg DVDs, just trying to make a living. So I think that, like, I don't know, I think a lot of people in the film were kind of pretending. Or trying to put on another face. Even in the scenes where Montgomery was in his room kind of like rehearsing how to be a tough guy. Like he's also like trying on a different face and seeing how that fits instead of just being, accepting who he is type of thing. I don't think that he was trying to escape, but I guess knowing that people were going to make fun of him for who he was, just trying to see like.
I think he's more so trying to understand. Like Montgomery is the one person in the film that doesn't have to do those things. I feel like because he is he's the director of this whole play, because this whole thing has been a play. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Cinnamon.
Oh, you're fine.
If you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and share the moment that I really loved, which was, I think that one of the bullies, the one that goes to visit the house, and I'm so sorry that I don't remember his name.
Kofi, I think is his name, Kofi.
Kofi, yes. So I think Kofi is being bullied by the rest of the group at some point, and it's like late at night, and Montgomery is watching, and he goes, that's brilliant, that's brilliant. And he comes over and he's like, and they're so confused. And he turns to Kofi and he's like, you're good right there. Stay right there. And I like, that was a moment for me that was like really, for me, that was my like tearing up point. I mean, I cried at a lot of parts of the movie. That's just me. But that was one of the times that I cried the most, because for him, everybody is putting on this act. Absolutely everybody is putting on this act. And the play itself is a call to stop, like to stop acting, to allow those emotions to flow free, to allow who you are to be free. And I don't know, Montgomery was my favorite. He was my absolute favorite, just because of that. So yeah, That's all.
Liz, did you have a favorite scene or a scene that stuck with you?
I mean, I think quite a few. The thing that comes to mind when I think of this movie is the more like cinematic choices that were made, like kind of just um like just different like framing devices, like when they're holding the flowers when they get off the bus, and then you see like the smoke, and then it's kind of like foretelling something bad is coming.
Right.
Just like different stuff like that comes to mind. But
Once they got off the bus, the flowers were dead. Like, did you guys notice that?
Yeah, like they were like slowly dying, but they still like looked bright. Like it was just like a lot going on in the composition. And also, I actually really loved seeing Jimmy skateboarding. Like you just got to see so much scenery and so much like very like it really made you see San Francisco and how beautiful it is. And it made some of the parts you wouldn't think, I guess people wouldn't come to mind as being beautiful.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, the play is like the climax of the film and the most impactful to me. I found that part difficult. Like I found that scene difficult because I understood the play, and I felt like you can see that there's like this natural expression from Montgomery. You can feel like he's like feeling himself, and people are feeling him. And I kind of felt when he reveals that secret in the moment, it was kind of him not realizing that he felt, I think he feels like this is like going to be the way he can like show his friend like this is the truth, this is the moment, like you don't have to do this. But I think there also was like kind of a little bit of a hubris. He doesn't realize like how painful and hurtful that could be. And like in the end of the movie, it kind of results in the end of this like friendship we watched the whole time. And so I think sometimes that's like missing in the commentary about like the consequence of him expressing himself in that way, and basically putting his friend on blast like that. And it's like because we watched him this whole movie, we know he kind of doesn't see what was wrong in doing that. Like, so I don't know, like that part kind of like it makes me I feel like a little bit of secondhand embarrassment watching that part, because there's so many consequences for doing this, and you understand where he's coming from, but it's like that wasn't right, like to me in a way. Like I felt like Jimmy should have been able to have that make that choice, I guess.
Yeah, because it's almost like I was conflicted, and I was like, is this okay? Like he shouldn't just, like, he had to say this in this forum, like in front of everybody. Because I don't think it's a question of whether or not Jimmy would be receptive to it, because I feel like if he had a one-on-one conversation the same way he had put him on blast, he would have been like, oh, okay, well, if you saw the paperwork and that's what the paperwork said, then oh my gosh. Because I think towards the end of the movie, we find out that he knew this all along, and he had just been telling this story. Right. He had just telling himself the story over and over and over again. And then he's like, oh, wow, I've been telling myself this story for so long, I forgot that it wasn't true. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is just a reminder moment for you.
So I also think that Montgomery probably could have went about talking to Jimmy about it in a different way, but I don't think that their friendship ended as a result of how he went about it. I think that especially towards the end, when they were all sitting in the living room and Montgomery was doing what he usually did, which was explain the TV show to his grandfather. I think that Jimmy kind of felt like a twinge of like sadness a little, because here Montgomery is sitting with his grandfather, continuing to make memories, and Jimmy doesn't have a family. And now the one thing that has anchored him pretty much and kept him hopeful and grounded, he's like, I might not have family, and, I might not feel like I really belong, but at least I have this house. Like, I know that my grandfather built this house, and that's what's keeping me, like, sane in a way. So once it's revealed to everyone, pretty much, that he's told this lie to, that the house, in fact, was not built by his grandfather, and you know, he breaks his skateboard. And I think that it's like symbolic that everything that he's tied his identity to has been a sham, and he doesn't feel like real anymore. Like he has to figure out who he is without the house, without the skateboard, without his family, without his best friend, you know, who's been facilitating him going to this house and painting it and gardening it and being on the lookout for him. So I think that, like I said, Jimmy definitely could have benefited from being told maybe on the side about the house that Montgomery finally knew and seen the deed. But I also think that he just realized, like, the jig is up. I have to go somewhere else. San Francisco is not for me anymore. I don't really belong here. This house, you know, isn't really mine. So I just have to kind of find my own way. I think it was just him breaking away and saying, like, I have to figure out who I am by myself, without the house, without Montgomery, without my skateboard. So I don't think it's bitter about the friendship ending at all.
Because I kind of felt like
I agree with that. I think I've phrased it wrong saying the end of the friendship. It's just, but it does completely change the dynamic of how they've been interacting. They're not going to interact every day anymore, and I think that is a loss in a way.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like him breaking the skateboard the way he did and how it broke, I feel like it kind of symbolized like him making the conscious decision to break these codependent bonds that he's had this whole time, like with his aunt and her situation, with Montgomery and his family situation, with him not having a stable situation of his own, and then actually making the conscious decision to break those ties, break those bonds, and then go out and find his own and make his own. So I feel like that was a really telling scene just to depict like where we're going from here.
And I would say that in spite of breaking those bonds, it's not something where you just completely forget where you came from and the people in your lives. And I feel that way because of that final scene. There are two women who are talking negatively about the area and how much they essentially like how much they hate it. And one of the women is Thora Birch, and I will touch on that just really quickly after I say this, but he turns to them and he's like, excuse me, do you live here? And I think they say, one girl says yes, and I'm not sure if they both say yes. And he's like, well, you can criticize it, but you can't say that you don't love it. It's something to the extent where if you
he said you don't get a chance to hate it if you've never loved it.
Yes. And so I feel like it's just a little bit of those two things in how he's feeling about it. And as far as Thora Birch is concerned, she was in a film called Ghost World. I don't know if anybody saw that. And there was a note about this, that was her being on the bus, because at the very end of that film, she sits and waits for a bus that apparently had never come. And eventually that bus does come and she gets on it and we don't know where she goes. But interestingly enough, there's some parallels in that film and in this one in terms of like finding out, like discovering who you are, who you want to be, and getting out of a space in order to become more. But yeah, I like that little nod.
Now I have to go watch that movie.
I know.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you guys like it. It's worth it. It's also a graphic novel, but and it's
called
weird.
Ghost World?
Yeah. It's equally weird. It's equally weird. But I remember it was something that I really liked in high school, which is probably why there's more than just that as a reason why I really enjoyed this film. But this film was brilliant. I loved it. I loved it.
Yes, the more we discuss it, it wasn't my favorite at first, because I don't know. But the more, like with all the A24 films, like Bashir touched on earlier, you kind of have to watch it more than once in order to really appreciate it. Because, the first watch is kind of like you dissecting all the films and trying to figure out, dissect the scenes and trying to figure out which themes are apparent and what characters are supposed to evoke what emotion in you. Then the second watch is like, okay, this is all coming together type of thing. So I appreciated it after the fact for, the thought-provoking material that A24 films always provide. I did want to touch on 3 parts that kind of like kept the scene a little lighthearted because I feel like the content was a little heavy. The scene with Tashina Arnold, and she's like watching her boyfriend skateboard and he like falls.
No. When she tells him to do that trick that he used to always do, and all he does,
Right, that small little move off the ground. But she's like being so supportive of him, and I feel like that I kind of symbolizes who she has been to Jimmy, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone he could just go to and hang out with and not necessarily feel judgment from her. Because in the scene, you know, her boyfriend falls off the skateboard and she's like, oh, but you still look good, baby. You still look good, baby. Even if you're on the ground, like she's still trying to encourage him. That scene had me like, oh, wow, this is nice. The scene with Mike Epps, I don't know, I just really love Mike Epps and I like seeing him in movies doing his thing. And then the scene with the guy on
the naked guy.
Yeah, the naked guy getting on the bus. I appreciated that Jimmy was just acting so normal, and he's just like the naked guy is just acting like the people on the bus are the crazy ones, and he's sitting there like literally butt naked, and they're like, you know, trying to cheer him on, like, yeah, we know about you, guy, and he's like, wow, this city, man, and then Jimmy's just like, yeah, tell me about it, like, I know, I live here. So I appreciated like he was able to kind of relate to everybody around him, even if they weren't like on, you know, the same level or journey or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's almost like if you're from the city and you live in the city, then that is normal to you. But then having all these tourists come into your city and it's like they're the ones who are making it all hot. It's like,
you know what?
This is normal.
Right.
You know what else I found pretty funny was the couple that lived in the house and how when they discovered him painting the outside of their house, the woman, the wife, she flips out on him. She's like, listen, why don't you go fix up somebody else's house? Leave my house alone. And she's throwing like croissants at him. And the husband's like, hey, those cost $3. Stop doing right. And then she's like, listen, we're going to call the cops. And he's like, no, we're not calling no cops. And I'm like, yes.
Right.
Yes, somebody got enough sense to realize that this man does not need the police called on him because he's painting your house.
Right.
You know, he's trying to beautify your house. Just have a conversation with him. So for me, I thought that was an amazing scene. I really like that scene a lot.
Yeah. Also the ending when Montgomery goes back to the house and now it's like all modernized, it's cleaned up, it's bright. I think that was kind of the last like, wow, like Jimmy's memory is kind of like finally gone in a sense. The lady at the front door offers him a brochure and he just walks in like, I know this house, like I don't need a tour. And then at the end when he kind of like jumps out at the people from the little closet that Jimmy used to hide in.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so weird because I was just like, wow, the history of a house, like you really never know the history of a house, you know, unless you've lived there. Because here you guys are in a library pretty much. And this is a room where a young boy used to go to hide when his father was doing drugs. And now this person that's also connected to that past is jumping out at you. And it's just like, those people will always be a part of the history of that house, no matter how many times you change the face of it, no matter how many new pieces of furniture you put inside of it. So I thought that it kind of like came full circle, that Montgomery was there and it's like, yeah, you knew people are here, but me and my best friend were still in this house and his family had this house long before you were even born type of thing.
Yeah.
I appreciated that at the end.
Going back to it, I just want to go back to like towards the beginning of the film because nobody touched on it yet. I know y'all saw that fish.
Oh yeah, yo, that fish with
like
3 eyes.
Like, you need to stop eating
the
fish that comes out of the water. And then
he said something about the seagull. Remember what he said about this? I can't even.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He said if you think the fish was a problem, what he said about the seagull, that was just out of this world.
I was like, fish got 2 eyes.
Yeah, the water was
The water was bad.
Yeah. He said, and one of the guys on the corner said, we know the water is bad. They built an atomic bomb on it.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's one of the things I enjoy about the film, when they would show you the change of scenery when you went to a different neighborhood. You went to a predominantly Black neighborhood. People are sitting on the cars. Everything looks busted. You can see the river. You can see how bad everything is around. Then you go to where the house is, and everything just looks beautiful. It's flourishing. You know, it's something you want to be a part of.
The gentrification aspect of it,
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, when it's kind of like in the background as Montgomery and Jimmy are kind of like going to the house. At the end, the person says, like, even when you go to that side of San Francisco, like, don't forget who you are. Like, don't let this make you feel like you don't belong here, like you're out of place. Like, it's all the same San Francisco. Like, just as much as it's their home, it's also your home. You know, just because you live on the other side of the tracks, you shouldn't feel out of place ever. I appreciated that, especially going into the movie when you think back on, you know, like I think Bashir touched on it, like in the beginning, they kind of set you up to understand that this is going to be a little bit more about finding yourself and having a sense of belonging instead of it being about, you know, trying to, secure your identity to this place and just, I don't know, feeling secure in yourself, even if you aren't in this place anymore that you consider your home.
Yeah. And did you see all the looks that they were getting as they would
Man.
Did you see that?
Crazy. Yeah.
All the scowls and it was so and you feel that happens. Like, I mean, you know, you still feel that today. I know there are parts of the city where I go and I get those looks. So I mean, I can really connect with this film on so many levels. So
yeah, you kind of had to be well in this film. I feel like both Jimmy and Montgomery had to be hyper aware in the white part of San Francisco and hyper aware at home because they already knew that the guys on the block were going to be on them as soon as they stepped outside. So it was kind
it's
of
like code switching, basically.
Yeah,
that's exactly what was
That's
happening.
what Jimmy had to do. A lot of that code switching. So I can kind of relate to the movie too. I think that's why I liked it so much, because you find yourself going to neighborhoods where you kind of have to put on that persona. You got to act hard. You got to act like, you know, this is your street, this is your block. And then when you get into neighborhoods where it's, you know, upper class, predominantly white people, you kind of have to, you got to pull it back.
Yeah, unimposing.
Right. And you do it to protect yourself, and I feel like that's what you know was going on there.
That's right.
Yeah. The next movie we watch, I want to watch something around the theme of like taking up space, because I feel like this movie kind of like highlighted the fact that sometimes, depending on where you go, where you travel to, you kind of have to shrink yourself. You can't really be yourself out loud in every area, especially if you're a Black person or person of color. So the next film I want us to watch, I want it to be lighthearted. I want somebody to triumph in that movie. So
you don't think Jimmy triumphed in this movie?
No. There was a lot of shrinkage going on.
Also, as I highlight every discussion we have, this was Bashir's pick. I don't know if he's down there to my right on you guys' screen. But this is I liked it. Overall, I liked it. So good pick.
Thank you.
I will have to say that there are a couple of movies we've done that I hadn't started liking until after we discussed it, and then I'll go back and watch it.
Exactly.
So it's like, maybe I'll give this one a third try.
I mean, a second try.
Third time's the charm.
If you don't like a film, I would still suggest watching other films that either the director or the writer. And I mean, Jonathan Myers, he's like out here doing all the things. So,
Jimmy Fells actually he wrote this film, right? And he was one of the main characters. I thought that was
based on his life.
Based on him. So I think even if you didn't like this one, there's other things that might prompt you to like look at.
Lauren, did you want to touch on the score?
Yes. So
okay.
It is. Sorry. It is available on Freegal. This is definitely one. I know The Witch was one that I was like, I'm good, but this one, I do have, or I did start to download pieces of that, and I do come back to it, and it always gives me a sense of longing. So like I always want to go back to the film. There's a specific, and I should have written it down and I didn't, but it comes towards the end of the movie. It's kind of that main theme that plays throughout, but I think it's a little bit more heavy towards the end. And that one in particular is one that I chose to kind of listen to here and there. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely well done. So I do encourage you to check out Freegal. There are a variety of things that are there. I'm actually in the process of creating an anime playlist for another program.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
You'll have to share that with me, Lauren.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love
There's
to.
some Yu Hakusho in there.
If you have a date, please plug it now.
I don't have a date for when that's scheduled to be released. I know we recently recorded it, and now I'm just trying to make a kind of like a classic anime playlist, but also sprinkle a little bit of some modern stuff. But a lot of those tracks I was able to find on Freegal, amazingly enough, if not the actual track itself, but covers. So please, I encourage everyone at all times to check out Freegal, because there is really some amazing stuff there.
And for those of you watching who aren't familiar with our online resources, this movie, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, can be found for free on Canopy. All you need is your library card. You may have to register an email, but it is 100% free, and they have plenty of other documentaries, films, critically acclaimed films on Canopy for free. And like Lauren said, Freegal is also another one of our free online resources where you can download hundreds of music for free and store it on your phone. What else did I want to plug? I believe that's it. If anyone has any lingering comments about this movie or questions that you want to ask the group.
Oh, well, I just want to say kind of like what Lauren was saying, that last song where the guy is singing at the end about San Francisco, I thought that was like one of the more moving parts of the movie for me. I was like, oh, I kind of like this song.
Mm-hmm. When he started with the "I got problems,"
yeah, exactly.
I read that that's the same guy that sings the hook for that song. Like it's
really.
Wow. It sounded like it. Yeah, he did that.
Yeah, he had a really nice voice. Also, the guy who was doing the opera.
Opera Man.
Yeah, he had a beautiful voice.
Like the music was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This
movie won an award at Sundance, right?
I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think so.
Yeah, all the scores in A24's films are just chef's kiss. Always so good.
Except The Witch.
unless you're into that lingering doom soundtrack.
The low rumble.
Right.
Hate on the Witch.
The storm's coming.
Black Billy. Black Phillip, that's his name, not Black Billy.
The Witch is another A24 film that we watched as a panel and discussed. It should be like archived on our page's YouTube if you guys want to check that out if you've seen The Witch. But I think for now that will conclude this panel discussion for The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Again, I thank you all very much for joining us, and I hope that you'll be back for more discussions. Thank you. Bye.